You're listening to the Out of the Box podcast with Timmy, Halisa and Sinosure.
Hello, welcome to Out of the Box. My name is Halisa and there's Timmy. Duro Timmy is also here. So today we want... Yeah, hello. Hi, Duro Timmy. So today we have special guests on this panel and we are glad to maybe have the opportunity to speak to them more. And the conversation today will be centered around end bad governance in Nigeria. And as you already know, we've been trying to talk about protests, the aftermath of that protest, what we can learn from it. And today we have Engineer Khalid, who was arrested and detained by the DSS for 68 days. So he was basically arrested on August 3rd. That's like the third day, according to the news that I have, but I can be corrected. And I also heard that he was brought, or the formal, accusations that was brought forward to the court was done in October 3rd. I can also be corrected on that because we have Engineer Khalid and we also have his lawyer, Wali, or Barrister Wali, or, Ibrahim Wali. So I hope I get all of that correctly. So let's get into the conversation. Please, we'll try our best to keep it just in the flow of whatever the experience was or whatever we should do, moving forward, given the light of events right now that we see a lot of people detained or a lot of kids that were detained and they are being reprimanded to court. So we are trying to understand what is going on in our country, right? And then we'll also try to put it, through the person that might have the most experience to also share with us. So, Dorothy, I'll hand over the mic.
Okay, yeah. So, like you said everything already. There's a lot of stuff that is going on, and we've had a couple of episodes. I think 1, 2, 3 episodes post the protest, or before the protest, and during the protest, and after the protest. We did have a couple of conversations surrounding it and the reactions, and we reacted to a lot of reactions, to the protest. But one key thing that happened during the protest was a lot of people were locked up, a lot of people were killed, a lot of people were picked up, and many of them are still incarcerated. So I think it'd be nice to just hear from Engineer Khalid to basically narrate what happened, because I know we're in communication on Twitter at that particular time before the protest was about to start, before I heard that he had been picked up and everything. And after a while, we stopped hearing a lot of information. So I think we should just dive straight into hearing from Engineer Khalid himself to just basically give an account of what happened and the reason why the DSS picked him up and what was the situation basically. And then we'll take it up from there. So Engineer Khalid, over to you.
Yeah, if we would want to simplify it, can you start by just telling us where you protested, or just give us that brief information before you might dive into a lot of the detail?
All right. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Dorothy, good afternoon. Mr. Wali.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Yeah. So I protested in Kaduna, particularly Kaduna Metropolis, and I went out for the end bad governance protest. That was the third day, day 3, which I was arrested by the DSS in the central area. That was in the area of Nepa roundabout. With me, other 11 people were picked at the same time. Then we were taken to the Kaduna State Command and detained there I was detained for 68 days. And while we were there, others were also brought. Then that brought our number to 39 persons. So subsequently, the others got bail, but then I don't know, for whatever reason, they picked interest in me and 2 others, which we were detained for that very long time. I was the oldest detainee. I was there for 68 days. The second person was there for 67 days, and then the third person was there for 65 days. So that was a round of what happened that day.
Okay, so yeah. So according to what I also saw, it's like you were, because I was trying to get it if it was Kaduna or Kano, because I was reading a Daily Trust publication on this, and it said that there was you were protesting, and then you were even trying to conduct people to be peaceful. You were telling them they should do things without insulting people. You were trying to even educate people on the protest ground, but for some reason they came with about like 12 Hiluxes or SUVs or things like that, and they picked you up. So for me, when I saw it the first time, or when I first heard the news, I thought it was the police that took you, or maybe soldiers, but it was straight up the DSS. Can you clear that? Like, how did the DSS just come and take you guys? And what we see on social media sometimes is like there's like Black Maria, they arrest people, because some of the comrades that I know have already faced this. We see videos from them on social media, but I think this is a little bit more, maybe more targeted, because, or how do you feel about it, that they used a specific type of vehicles, and DSS did the arrest by themselves? So I know DSS does kidnapping, but this one is like open arrest. Is this something that is even under what the DSS should do? I guess that's the question that would even, that Wali can, respond to a bit later. So please, what do you think? How did that happen? Did you even know it was the DSS that took you first? Or when did this whole information begin to gather very well for you to understand what was going on?
Okay, I don't know, for whatever reason, because we've been on spaces end bad governance protest. We've been on spaces. I mean, we've been in communications, and we all know there are some people which we may call as a person of interest, and I feel that was where they gathered some names. So I don't know. I'm not sure, but maybe that was where I became person of interest to them. But if you go back to all those spaces that I was part of, that I was part of, that I joined, I was always preaching for organization. I was always preaching for people not turning violent. People should be peaceful. That we can't allow all those thugs, all those touts to be the forefront of this protest. And that was basically what I was preaching, because it got to a point where nobody could stop people from going out to protest. So we, as well-meaning Nigerians, then even if you weren't planning on going out to protest, it has become a duty for you to be out there, so that you can actually ensure things that are done orderly and properly. So I was key part of that, and I felt it was necessary for the good ones out there to go out and also hit the streets. So for whatever reason, I became a person of interest, because the way the arrest happened, that was not a natural arrest. It was show of force. You would think they are there to arrest some Bello Turji, and we were just some peaceful protesters. Not very very large number as at when they picked us up, because I even had the opportunity to get away, because I saw them coming. It was more than 10 cars, Hilux and SUVs. You would think they were going to arrest one huge terrorist or something, just showing force on innocent protesters. I was like, so all this capacity these people are showing, where is it? These guys are out there doing all this causing all this havoc, and you basically didn't do anything about them, or to our knowledge, we don't know what you are doing on the background, but to our knowledge, we can't see what you are doing about them. But us that are trying to make our country better are the ones who are showing this kind of force. So I was surprised. I saw them coming. I could have gotten away, but then what would I be? Because all these people were looking up to me, so I had to be there with them. And this was no Black Maria. This was just normal Hiluxes, black, and SUV, a black one. They got there, they blocked all of us because we were walking. And I specifically held the mic so that I would be passing this message of people being peaceful, people being organized, people making sure people, you don't insult anyone. I mean, you don't break any laws. And we were passing, I think we walked about 15 kilometers from where we started. And there was no any problem, because we did the first and the second day, and this was the third day. And we had no problem the first day, we had no problem the second day, and we were on the third day. And we were passing, we were supposed to start at a place called Elilo in Tudunwada. But that morning, I kept getting calls in the morning. Do you know what is happening at that rendezvous? I was like, what's going on? So I sent someone to go and check. That place was flooded with security operatives, about 30 or 50 of them, because that was where we were supposed to start, just to make sure that we didn't go on with the protest. I went down myself and I saw them. I was like, wow, these people are not serious. So we changed the rendezvous, that's the meeting point. We started and we kept going. And we passed so many security operatives. We passed the police. I'm not giving credit to the police, but in this regard, see, whenever someone give credit when it's due. We passed the police, we passed soldiers, we passed this cadres, the local security operatives around. We passed all of them, like in numbers, and each batch we passed, those guys will be clapping at us. We passed ordinary people, some market people were even opening their shops, and they were encouraged with the way we were doing things. Like, this is how people are supposed to be protesting. So we were going. Upon us reaching the Nepal roundabout, those DSS just blocked us there. They came out and they parked all of us. Okay, they parked those they could get their hands on, and then they took us down to their office. So, and that was where the whole torture, malnourishment, everything you could think, that was where it happened. And if someone had told me that this was possible in this Nigeria, I would say no. But then this is a modern day slavery. This is slavery, and what he did was modern kidnapping, because that was not an arrest. That was kidnapping straight up. Because at first they were even denying that I was in their custody. We were in their custody. It took some days before our people were actually able to identify that we are in their custody, and then they could not deny.
And I'm not sure if that was you, but I think there was a particular tweet. I think when people raised alarm at first, I'm not sure if it was you, but I remember there was a particular tweet that the DSS put out that, someone was not in their custody. I can't remember, but I know it was, one of the who were arrested. I think it was you, I'm not sure. But they put out a tweet, a disclaimer that, this person is not with us. We don't know the whereabouts, of this person. And that's something like, when you talk about like modern day kidnapping, that's something that is so, it's a repetitive behavior. It's something that they do. Is in their nature. It is their modus operandi to arrest people and then deny. I remember when they arrested the national coordinator of Take It Back movement, they denied that they were not with him. The police, in fact, it was, let me not even say how, people got to find out that he was actually there, because I did hear from another source how people got to find out, or how the movement got to find out that, he was actually in the custody. So I think, that was maybe June that they put out a disclaimer for, that the DSS put out but this particular individual is not with us. But this is the way that they operate. They arrest people and they claim that, this person, we don't have this person. Nigerian military would deny, Nigerian police would deny, DSS would deny. And then if no one even knows about you, people might just forget, if you don't have a family to speak up for you, if like you said before, when you started speaking, you were talking about how you were active online, talking from space to space. I mean, if you did not make yourself a prominent member, who knows? Maybe there are even people who nobody knows. They just went out to go and participate in this protest or, civic actions. People that are just go out there to do things. And because they are not so popular, because there's no one to speak for them, they get locked up and nobody even knows until maybe they decide, the police or the DSS decides to release them or even make them disappear, like, in the way that they brag about making people disappear, So it's really pathetic how, these things continue to happen. But, so can I ask a question about basically people who are, like you said, are there still people who are locked up, based on, apart from the minors that we saw? Are there still other people who that are currently like locked up at this particular time? I think we're having this conversation on the 3rd of November, 2024. Do you know anyone? That's
so. I don't know how to call it. That's he was arrested August 3rd. I think the court was in October 3rd, and I don't know, whatever, but I just feel like, I just wanted to say that. And I think you said something that was interesting. The way they would literally tell you that we can make you disappear is now even in the languaging of like all of these political, at this point, I can't call them elites. I think, we need to start rethinking a lot of those kind of words that we used to speak to these people. But they just say they'll make people disappear. They come out and they say anything. Nobody confronts anything. Even though they do, it's just like, you all are just talking. It's just, for talk. But go on, please. The question about if there are people that are still left in custody.
Yes, there are people still left in custody. And, I was in DSS detention for 10 weeks. And then they charged us to court on the 3rd. That would be 2 months. Then we were supposed to appear in the court on the 10th, but for whatever reason, they didn't take us to court. They even brought us out that we were going to court. Then we decided not to proceed, and they took us back. It was the next week that we were taken to court. That was on the 10th. So, and the court remanded us in the correctional center in Kaduna, where I went and I met so many people in numbers that are protesters. Some have been charged to court. Some are just there sitting. They don't even know what they are doing or where they are heading. And I saw personally, and I got information of about 30 of them that are still in there. So
this whole thing happened in Kaduna, right?
Yes.
It wasn't in Abuja.
No, it was in Kaduna.
Okay, so if I would pass the question on to Wali, and before he goes, actually, we are really, really sorry that you had to go through this. I mean, I don't know. We can't even imagine, to be honest. I think there are many things that are so normalized now that it's just like, yeah, even people that are activists will be like, you have to be arrested once or something like that. I think that's just like a coping mechanism, but everything is just not normal and not right. But yeah, we're very sorry and deeply sorry for all you had to go through. So, Wali, can you please let us know how long it took for you to get connected to Engineer Khalid, and how, just give us the whole circumstance surrounding the beginning of the whole case for you.
Thank you. I wanted to quickly talk about the DSS, but since you've narrowed it to this question, so the reality is, in Nigeria today, even a unit of the police can arrest you incommunicado for as long as they please, right? One of the problems, obviously, is with arbitral arrests like this is, contrary to what the law stipulates, they arrest you and they don't communicate to your relatives. By law, they ought to communicate to your relatives themselves or allow you to do so. And obviously extend your right of representation to connect with your lawyer, and this should be done within 24 hours. But obviously, the Department of State Security, that is what they love to call themselves, but by the law that actually creates them, they are known as the State Security Services. That is the National Security Agencies Act, really gives them a wide range of undemocratic powers. And I think that this is where the problem lies generally. Before we even go to how we were able to connect with him, this is why they are able to do what they are doing. Even though the police are more regulated, they can also do something similar, but it's much easier to deal with the police all the same. So this National Security Agencies Act really provides, this is the act that creates the NSA, that is the National Security District Office that Ribadu is holding. It creates the Defense Intelligence Agency, it creates the National Intelligence Agency, and creates the State Security Service. Now, what it does is, for a law that creates about 4 or 5 intelligence agencies, it's only 4 pages long. So you have to understand that this is actually a relic of pre-colonial Nigeria, post-colonial Nigeria, and then the military rule. This particular one, in fact, was written and was promulgated by the military. Obasanjo finessed it, IBB finessed it as well, and Abdulsalam Abubakar finessed it as well. So you have to understand that this the mentality and the objective of creating this agency is to serve the system, is to serve the establishment, to protect, because it came at the back of coups. So it served to protect the government of the day from from being toppled, from coups. So they just use it as their machineries to go after their political enemies, or to go after whoever they want to go after in the guise of protecting internal security. But what internal security here means basically is literally the establishment, the government, the president, right? So this law literally says that the operations of the NIA, the operations of the SSS and the DIA are subject only to the discretion of the president. It is the president that has the final say as to what they do and what they do not do. And it goes on to say in subsection 4 of its first provision that these sections have effect notwithstanding the provisions of any other law to the contrary, or any matter therein mentioned. So if you bring in the Administration of Criminal Justice Act, they can tell you that, it doesn't apply because this law really provides them shelter. So you have to understand that they are operating on a military law, and that is why they behave the way they do. At some point, they were going after terrorists and intelligence, trying to gather intelligence about terrorism, 2011, 2012. But now they've just really become mercenaries for hire, for private citizens and for the government. So they were able to hold them for as long as, before I came in anyway, 25 to 30 days. That before I knew that, okay, they were in this particular precinct. But it was his father actually who really did the whole work. He was always knocking on doors. He was going from pillar to post, meeting, whoever he can meet. And I think it is in one of those meetings that he was able to find out that, this is where they were. But even at that, he wasn't able to gain access. So, but obviously the media also did its part. I remember Sahara reporters put out a post that they didn't know where engineer was, and it generated some sort of buzz. So I don't know if it had any effect or not, but things like that were happening gradually. But in the long run, we now got a hint that they were going to be taken to court, and they didn't even communicate it to us or to the father, because I was in contact with the father. They didn't communicate it to us, even 24 hours before. It was in the morning that they were going to bring them to court that we actually found out that they were going to bring them to court. Mind you, at this time, they had already spent 60-something days. And we didn't even know what the charges were specifically. At that time, we haven't even seen the charges, the formal charges. So on the 3rd of October, when we got wind of the fact that they were going to come to court, we rushed to court, obviously, because they try to blindside you, and that way, it makes it easier for them to get maybe a remand order. If they go to court, for example, and you don't have a representative, they can tell the court to adjourn it and give an order to remand you for 14 days or for 30 days. And now they have a legal basis for, remanding you. So we had to rush to court. We had the intention of going even without filing anything to challenge them orally, regardless of how it was going to turn out. When we went to court, they didn't bring them to court on that day, but the prosecution from DSS was in court. And my lord also sat, and the court was sitting, but they didn't bring them to court. And the prosecution said he didn't know what the problem was. Maybe it was an internal problem. The operatives who were supposed to bring them to court weren't informed. Just all sorts of excuses. But they didn't bring them to court on that day. And then it was on that day that we were able to get a sneak peek of the charge sheet, because they didn't serve it to us on that day. They were supposed to serve it to us officially, but he said he didn't have any copy for us. But we were able to get a sneak peek, and I think we were able to take at least 60 to 70% of it, because we from the one in the court's file, and then obviously we filed an application for the one in the court's file. So at that stage, 3rd of October, we got a date for 10th. They wanted the dates to be further than 10th, but we were able to get 10th, which is just 7 days between the day and the court date. And it also takes 7 days for you to file a bail application, and for the other parties, the prosecution, to reply. For them to reply, you have to give them 5 days. If you give them 5 days, if they reply, even if on the 5th day, you now have 3 days to file your reply as well. So they knew that, okay, we had only 7 days. So when we filed our application, we had to file our application on that same 3rd. When we filed our application and served it on them on that day, if they were diligent enough, they could have filed their counter affidavit in 2 days or in 3 days, but they filed it in 4. So which means we don't have our 3 days before the court sits. But obviously the law is flexible, and we've tried to we looked at it extensively. We knew that you have the right, as an applicant, to waive your reply. Your reply means you cannot file a reply affidavit and a written address, but you can substitute it for an oral argument in court. What you can't do is put forth an affidavit. So we took their counter affidavit, and we accepted the other option because we needed to utilize the 7 days. So on the 10th, that is, we applied for his bail. At that time, we weren't representing the other defendants. Okay, I represented them on the day, but before the day, I wasn't supposed to represent them, or it wasn't the natural, flow of events. But they didn't have representation, so I represented all 3 of them on the first day. So we
Okay, so sorry to cut you out. I'm just curious. So these 3 people, or what was the charges, or what the official one stated against them?
Yes, so basically they said that the first count was that Khalid, Salihu, and Usman Adebayo, those are the three defendants, together conspired to assemble unlawfully and cause damage to people's properties and lives, and to also threaten the government and to topple the government. And they were seen with loud music instigating people to commit violence and instigating a coup, and waving Russian flags and instigating a foreign armed force to come into Nigeria and topple the president. Thereby they have committed the offense of criminal conspiracy. And then the next charge obviously charges them directly for unlawful assembly. So those were the two.
Wow, and I guess the instrument for this coup was supposed to be the speakers.
The speakers
music
and the music and the placards and
very dangerous tools indeed.
Right? It's for the
very dangerous tools.
I wanted them to come to court so that I can learn from them to see how music can help topple a president. But yes, so on the 10th, obviously we moved this bail application. They countered. They didn't want them to go on bail, but we replied on point of law. The offense is bailable. All of that usual law on bail application. And the court now said, okay, all right, you took the application. You now adjourned the case itself.
Yeah, but one thing I wanted to quickly just ask Ibrahim Wali is I have two issues that I think are very serious that need to be raised, because I think a lot of people don't take it really seriously. The first one is time, the amount of time that it takes. The objective of the Nigerian states, what they're trying to do, or what they try to do sometimes, they know they don't have a case. They know the charges that they come up with are frivolous and, childish and, ridiculous. But the objective sometimes is to waste your time. And we've seen that with many people before. So I think that's something that I'll have loved to ask, because when we talk about, yes, I know some of us advocate for a total overhaul of this system that puts us in this, that has put us in this place where we are right now. But when that overhaul comes, we do need to know what we need to replace it with, because this system whereby these things take time. For me personally, if you're going to take 5 months of my time, I think you're actually destroying my life. And, what they try to do is make sure that they eat up people's time in such a way that they, they distract, or they make anyone that may want to stand up against the government lose that morale. Because when you look at it, that they could literally keep you in that loop, an endless, senseless loop for 4 years, taking you to court, bringing you back, instead of just having if there's a case of treason, right? Because what they're charging them for is more like treason. It's like saying you want to overthrow a government, blah, 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 this, that, right? Why not make it a more serious case, or have a more strict deadline? These cases should not take longer than 3 months, or should not take longer than 4 months or 5 months. Why do we have to have them extended? Because what we now see is that they'll keep on going to court, maybe in the case of Engineer Khalid, they might keep on going to court whenever there's a hearing, until maybe another 1 year or 2 years, they don't tell you they're not interested again, like they did with the Showore case, before, and so many other people who they've done, these things for. So that's one thing I wanted to raise. Now, the second thing again is about, the bail conditions. When you hear some of the bail conditions that are handed out to these people, it makes literally no sense. You literally have to know someone who is and I don't know who made that rule. I don't know if that's the way it even is in other parts of the world. You must get a top tier civil servant that has a proper, because most civil servants, or maybe some civil servants may even be loyal to the government in power, and who would want to even risk their whatever to come and stand, to come and stand for you, like to say, oh, the person must have this amount of billion of millions, a property worth, how many people even have those kind of properties that we're willing to even, to stand for you? I don't know how lawyers do it. I'll have loved to ask, Ibrahim Wali, how they do it, because I've seen them get a lot of people out. I don't know if they're able to fulfill, or there are some things that they court to just say, okay, don't worry, just ignore this one. But when I hear those outrageous bail conditions, get this amount of millions, or get someone that has 2 landed properties or 1 house in one place worth this certain amount, I mean,
yes.
Oh yeah, great.
These are very, very crucial questions, actually, and in fact, they are one and the same questions, by the way. Both your first question and the second question are just extensions of the same problem. But there are 2 answers to these questions, right? There's the political answer, and there's the answer that, I like to call the street answer, that is what really obtains. So I'm very limited when it comes to political talk. So, but I'll just try to give it to you as straight as possible. So this is actually a multi-layered problem, right? Before we even get to the police or the court, this is fundamentally a rule of law problem, right? Nigeria is not really a country that is governed by a rule of law. We have to understand that we still haven't really realized, rule of law to even its to a limited extent, even to say by 20 or 30% of what it ought to be. So that is the primary problem, right? Obviously, that has a lot of wings and subsets as well, but that is the primary problem. So when we narrow it to the administration of criminal justice chain itself, then we can begin to see how really, really multi-layered these problems are. So I would like to begin from the perspective of the law. By the law, there are adequate checks and balances that should protect a citizen from being victim to this systemic oppression. That is this throwing you from pillar to post, arresting you, detaining you, and putting you in that court litigation loop. There are checks and balances both in the Constitution and the Administration of Criminal Justice Act. Adequate checks and balances. But the institutions that are supposed to interact with each other, the institutions that are supposed to ensure these rules come to life, the institutions that are supposed to promote these mechanisms have failed completely. In fact, a lot of them never really picked up anyway. It wasn't even as if they have failed. Like Nigerian police, there was never really a time when the Nigerian police was truly subject to the rule of law, or that they operated within the ambit of the rule of law. And the Nigerian police and other security operatives are the first in the chain of criminal justice. They are the first point of interaction between the citizen and the system when it comes to the criminal justice system. So the police is regulated by the Constitution, the police is regulated by the Police Act, the police is also regulated by the Administration of Criminal Justice Act. But you would find that only 1 in probably 10,000 policemen even know that their actions are regulated by these laws. Most of their actions are actually regulated by the precedents that they have found in the police system itself. So it is what his senior has done, it is what his boss has done, it is what that has become the law over time. So the police have their own custom that is outside of the law. Now in this custom, they have a mechanism of interacting with the law and circumnavigating it. They know where to go to get a remand order. They know what arguments to make, what documents to procure at each stage, even if through an illegal means, to make it look as if they have a case against you. So at that stage, even common and average Nigerians have the power to induce and influence the police to frustrate anybody at that level. So it's not just the state itself. Even I can mobilize the police to frustrate you if maybe we have a civil case, or maybe I gave you some money for investments, you invested it, and it didn't pick up, and I want to take my money back. And even though it is supposed to be civil investment based, I'll write a petition to the police, I'll mobilize them, they'll go and pick you, you'll run to the magistrate court, they'll procure a remand order, because the law says you need a remand order, but they ought to have filed an application, go and argue in court, show probable cause before they get the order. But they navigate all of that and just go straight to the order, and then they keep you, and then they try to extort you, they try to just to break your spirit so that they can recover the money for the complainants, so that they can sell your car, sell your properties, and they'll get their 10%, 5%, or whatever arrangement it is. So you have to understand that at that level, if the Nigerian police is not thoroughly reformed, and I don't mean paper reforms, but really, really serious reforms, then the every other thing that comes is going to be defective, and that is how it begins. Now, from that position, there is the unholy matrimony between the law enforcement agencies and our courts. Our courts sadly are not as independent as they ought to be. Right, you see that at all levels, the magistrate levels and area court levels, you see that they have their relationships with commissioners and DCPs and CSPs and SPs and CPs. And then if you go ahead, obviously judges, politicians, and all of that, obviously that is a rule of law problem, because of the nature of appointments, who can appoint, who can verify, and all of those macro problems. So at that stage alone, before we even come to litigation, you can spend as much time as they please, unless you have somebody on the other side knocking at the doors for your sake. And by the way, it's not easy. I can go to a court. Last week I went to the magistrate court. I vacated a remand order that the police are using to hold somebody, a lawyer in fact. I vacated it, but they quickly got another one through a different department. So basically, they want to send me here, send me there. Okay, get this one from a different court, get this one. So before I run around and say I want to vacate everything, and they even filed an appeal against the order, even though that is just literally not what the law prescribes. And even though
you're saying that from what I heard you from some statements, some sentences ago, you said that except that these guys have a way they can circumvent the system, except you have people putting pressure, So are you trying to say that public pressure, when we see, because sometimes we're online and we're doing all of these things for people that have been incarcerated, and we just feel like, what are we really doing? Let's allow the lawyers just do their thing. So are you trying to say that when the public mounts pressure, do you think that there's any effects? It has any effect if people are really talking about it? Blogs are talking about it. The news is talking about it. Do you think it mounts any sort of pressure?
If there's a connection between the public outcry and the ground working guys, it definitely does. Right, that is the lawyers involved, the respective officers. You have to identify the people. If you want it to be effective, a public outcry, you have to identify the department, identify the respective officers, identify the IPO, identify his boss, so that you can place, the outcry directly. But if you don't do that, you can it's just nobody really feels responsible for this. By the way, that's the problem. Even if you go through this circle and it found out that it was illegal, there's really nobody to hold to account. So that is why nobody really feels guilty.
So and
like this question of this bill, the bail conditions that they give.
Yes, it's the bail regime. I like to call it the bail regime. Right, our bail regime is just too discretional. You hear them saying that it is in the discretion of the court to decide one way or the other, and the court also has the discretion to, decide what the conditions are. But the problem is we've become so, legalistic in a way that, we totally relegate the spirit of the law. So the law itself, by law, even the Supreme Court has said that there's no essence of giving a bail that giving conditions for bail that cannot be satisfied. It's like giving it with one hand, taking it with another. There's literally judicial pronouncements on this. But sadly, our courts have become so robotic that they don't try to, they just come to court and, they just, I don't know, maybe it's the congestion, maybe, I don't know, the mind frame, maybe it's whatever inferences, but they don't try to extend that human sympathy to try to find out, okay, what is your social level? What can you afford? What is really what can you give, right? So they just discretion of the courts. It's so precedential. Okay, because one judge says civil servants, all the judges want to say civil servants, but there is nowhere in law where it says that you have to say civil servant. It is always at the discretion of the judge to look at your circumstances.
Interesting.
So this one is a problem of independent judges. Our judges really, need to be more. Obviously, it also boils down to the appointment process of the judiciary, right? So these issues are very, very interconnected. Unless you get someone who really understands the essence of these things, who really understand the essence of the rule of law, the essence of bail, who understands the spirit of law, you will just keep getting robotic decisions like this.
Yeah, and I think you made a good point there where you were trying to separate, I guess, the law and then you're like the institutions, because there are some people that will be like, Nigeria has all the laws, but the institutions are just not executing it properly. But I'm just like, that's actually debatable. Like, I don't know. Yeah, we have all the law, but there are some countries that really, they don't even have written constitution, but they still perform orderly or in a manner that works for them. So, that conversation is a whole another thing. But I want to bring Engineer Khalid back in, where I would like for us to, get a little bit of an insight about like the treatment in that system, because I think that it's just, I don't know how it's going to be, emotional for you to really just wait. You're like waiting, when is the next court date? What is even going on? You're trying to understand. From what I read, there was like maltreatment by those officers. There was now you don't even know what the case is, but you're being maltreated. You don't know what's going on. You're not a criminal. Like, what is going on here? So what is the whole experience, or what would you want to share as much as you can about the conditions or that you were put under, that other people also are put under? What I read, I just wanted to hear it from him, because I think that would convey more than just reading or just like seeing what happened or even listening, because I think there was another report that another media that he was on, that he spoke about it. But I also read like there was like serious torture, hitting, telling people to lie down. You just like torment people. You first of all put them through a process of dehumanization and let them know that they are not. It's just like you say, we always talk about these things where we're like, the Nigerian state is meant to dehumanize you, and everything they do is to make sure that is what happens first. You don't need to have any reason for that. Once you're born, you're a criminal, and then you'll be a criminal until you prove yourself to be a citizen, if you ever get there. Because at this point, who are the citizens? Probably like maybe the politicians and their children. So they put you through all of those criminal dehumanization process where they are like flogging you, telling you to roll over, do this and do that. They just pour water on your body. It's like, why? There's no reason for this. It's even to a point where you're like, they treat you like animals. But when I even see those kind of rhetoric, I'm like, who flogs animals? Go and try that in some other countries if you don't go to jail. Is it not one football player that threw his cat or something and he was booted out of the football competition? There was the whole thing. I'm not sure who the person was. So you can't even treat animals like that. There was a time when I was like, when the Nigerian state bombed people during Maulud in Kaduna, and I was just like, and people say they kill them like chickens. I said, even chicken, in the haram way, there's a way you kill them. You don't, there are countries, there are places where you don't just shock animals. It's against the law, right? So there's just a lot of dehumanization. Everybody is just a criminal under the system until you prove yourself to be worth this thing, to be worth being a human being. And at this point, there's no even stage. There's no that process where you're like, okay, let me do this and do that and do this and do that, and until I get there. So but Dorothy can continue with the conversation.
You like I said, you said it all already. In terms of the treatment and everything, I think we should at least thank God for the NSAS uprising that happened in 2020, in my own opinion, because while it did not stop in entirety all of this kind of issues from happening, it did bring consciousness, more consciousness to people, or more awareness to the people that, people were disappearing from prison cells. So you could be in prison cells and they could take you out in the middle of the night and kill you. And so, I think there's a lot more consciousness now, at least a little bit more awareness, even though there's little or no solidarity when people get incarcerated, but there's a little bit more consciousness now that, people holding this, what you call them now, the law enforcement accountable and telling them that we know this person is with you. We know this person is in your custody. I remember the particular case again that I referenced when Juwon, the national coordinator of Take It Back movement, was arrested. The people were able to mount pressure that we know this guy is with you, and if anything happens, you're going to be held accountable. And let me even because I was privy to some conversations where people were the phone numbers, the barrister said, Barrister Wali actually said, that when you know the actual IPO or when you know the actual people who are in charge of that case and you mount pressure, it helps. So I remember that time a lot of people were even calling the Nigerian police, calling the wherever they were being held, and people were making call. I think the numbers were put out in the public and people were calling we know this guy is with you, you must release him now. If you don't release him now, if anything happens to him, you'll be held accountable. And that kind of actually works. So I actually thank God for the NSAS uprising that actually made a lot of people more conscious about these things and more conscious to the fact that people can actually be incarcerated, and if there's no pressure from the public, if nobody is even sometimes in those days, I'm sure it's even still happening now, right? But maybe it's they're a little bit more conscious of their actions. They would even call the parents and tell you, if you don't pay for your child to be released from here, you will not see him again. It will disappear and nothing will happen. So it brings me back to the question that we're asking Engineer Khalid about his time where he was incarcerated, and what was the treatment like? Because I don't think a lot of Nigerians understand yet the kind of dehumanization that goes in when people are behind bars. What was the treatment like? Were you being fed properly? Were you tortured? What was the reason? If you were tortured, what was the reason why you were tortured? Did you experience other people being tortured? Were people being fed? And what was the treatment like? For someone who is presumed innocent until proven guilty, which they've not been able to prove that you're guilty of trying to do the things they accused you of. So Engineer Khalid, over to you. To
your question, that's how you described it, I think is an understatement, because even high level criminals should not go through what we've been through. But then we are not presumed, we are innocent. In my case, I know I'm innocent because I didn't break any laws. I was within my rights, and I was exercising my right to protest, and then I was picked up, and you could see there and then in front of people, in front of witness, because they had no regard for the law. In front of people outside, they were already hitting us. They were already hitting me. And then they packed all of us into the Hilux, some into the SUV, and we drove down to the command in Kaduna. When we get there, immediately, as I was stepping out of the car, I just received one strong, it was an armored cable. Someone just wiped that thing on my neck. Before I realized, the next person just packed me. I was flat on the ground, and I was like, what is going on here? And you could hear those guys cooking their guns just to scare you. I thought they were going to kill us there and then. And then I later realized it was a tactics they were using at that time. So they asked me to walk to an open place. It looks like a garden, more like a backyard or something like that. In backyards, I don't know if you guys are familiar, or people listening are familiar with this ordinary garden. You don't need to plant any grass. There are this grass that just grow, which you see they trim it. It will look like a grass carpet. but is a natural grass. So we got there, and then as you are getting there, you are seeing like someone will get there before you now, and it was at this time it was about 12 of us. So they will be asking you to pull your shirt and just lie down and start rolling on that grass. And the tap was on. So they connected a pipe to, it was like the pipe they used to water the garden. So they just on the tap, and then you would pull off your shirt, and then they will be pouring that water on you. And it was about 15-20 of those DSS personnel, and all of them were holding cable housing. If you know cable housing, that thing is very, very painful if they hit you with it. Some were holding huge sticks, some were holding armored cables. They're holding all sorts of things. This one is hitting you with this, the other one is hitting you with that, and someone is pouring water on you at the same time. Water was poured, and I was very, very surprised. One of those security operatives brought out a taser for God's sake, on a protester, and they were pouring water on us at the same time, hitting us, and the other guy was tasing us at the same time, and we were rolling back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So, and we did that for over an hour, going through that. Then they asked me to stand up. Then there was this drainage. The gutter was smelly. And they asked me to come forward. I was in the front. Then they asked us to crawl in that gutter, and that was how we crawled in that gutter from the beginning of that drainage to the end. It was so painful. And that grass, I thought it was just an ordinary torture, but then afterwards I realized it was a calculated torture, because even before you leave that place, because we were there for about 4-5 hours, going through all those tortures, from this one to that one, from this one to that one. Even before we left that place, if you see my skin, especially because I'm fair in complexion, it was looking like a snake's skin. It was very, very rough, and that was instant. So after crawling in that smelly gutter with all sort of germs and whatever you can think of, then they asked us to go back to that garden again and lie down and be looking at the sun. And we were there for over an hour. Then they asked us to get up, and then we went to one place. They sat us down, and this was back in August, and it was very cold in Kaduna. If you are familiar with the rainy season in the north, it was very, very cold, and that was they picked us up around 11, but it was around 5-6 before they were done with us, and then they asked us to sit down, and the breeze was just blowing us. So they were done. Then it was time to either let us go or take us to the place where we are supposed to sleep. So they took us to a room, and that's inside the DSS office. They took us to that room and asked us not to sit on anything. We were all lying on the tiles, and it was very, very cold. We were all smelling. And I mean, I was wearing a brown and gray and a gray pants and a brown t-shirt, but you could not even identify that because they had turned them to black. My singlet, if you saw my singlet. So that was how we sat down on that floor, smelling with all all the germs, all the insects that were on that grass. And that was how we slept on tiles, all of us, till morning. So we wake up in the morning, some guys came in, and then they called my name and they took me upstairs, that I should tell them who was behind me, who was sponsoring me, because they saw some post that I shared. I printed about 50 t-shirts for the End Bad Governance, which I shared for free, and they found out some things I did, like part of the coordination. It needs some financial dealings, like paying this person or that person, the DJ and the trucks and all that. So they were just direct at me. They went through my accounts. They were trying to find out a link between me and whoever they were thinking was sponsors of the state protest. And I was like, if you are in Nigeria and you know what is happening in Nigeria, do you need anyone to sponsor you before you go out to protest? So I asked them to look at me. If you look at me, like, I will not say I have a lot, but I'm not lacking anything. I can have 3 square meals. I can take care of my own family, my extended family. Like, I'm good. But then the way Nigeria is going, you could see yesterday, for example, some of my friends were the ones giving assistance, just like I was given to the needy. So let me continue. So, like, my friends are among the middle class, or say the elite class. But then the needy would be coming to them. Some would come to me, and we would assist the ones we could assist. And as time goes, as the economy is hitting everyone, and you can see some of them, they are now asking you for assistance. You wake up in the morning to some 20, 30, 50 missed calls, and majority of those calls are people asking for help. So in the north, there is this proverb that says, like, you don't have to. Okay, let me translate that. Say if the bear of your neighbor caught fire, then it's expected that you put water on your own before it gets to you. So even if you are not going to do it for your fellow citizens, for other people, then you should do it for yourself, because eventually it will catch up to you. It will catch up to everyone, because all the policies this government are putting in place are just directed at making sure no one is seeing the end of the day in Nigeria. So, and that was my reason for going out to protest. And they were trying to link me to someone or something, which there was no any link between me and anyone or anything. In fact, one of the interrogators was saying to me, if you see, we want things to be easy for you. So if you can link this to someone else, you will not have problem. We will just allow you go. I was like, even if I wanted to, I was not sponsored. I was not sent out there by anyone. I came out by myself. How much are you earning? How can you be spending these monies on this thing, and you say nobody is giving you money, this and that? So at the end of the day, there was nothing concrete, and I just gave my statement, and then they took me back to the holding cell. So that was how it started, and then I went through period of hardship. Like, I went through an experience that I never thought I would go through. And I was among those that were very strong, were carrying others along, like people have broken down. Spiritually, mentally, everyone has broken down. You would wake up, that person there is crying, the one in the corner is crying, and people were hungry. There was no food, because I'll get into what they give us for feeding. It's 2 meals. When you wake up in the morning around 11 to 1, you would have maybe rice or sweet potato porridge. Sweet potato porridge came very late, because then they were giving us just rice, jollof rice, and maybe white rice. But people kept complaining of ulcer. Everyone was having ulcer in that detention. So, but because the food was too small, it was this 1 liter container. You would have like 1/3 or 1/4 sometimes of that container. Even my 4-year-old kid would eat that and say, "Daddy, I want to add." But that's what they give an adult for his breakfast or lunch or whatever it is. And then around 3 p.m. in the evening, 3 to 5, they would bring one wrap of swallow. Could be tuwo, it could be eba. Just swallow, and that would be it. You will not eat after that 3 p.m. You will not eat till the next morning around 1 or 12, and that was how we kept going. It was hunger. It was hunger. It was hunger. It was hunger. So, people, you will see someone just walking, he will fall down. Like doctors were all over us, because everyone was sick. Today is ulcer, tomorrow is malaria, the next day is toilet infection. I mean, it was total dehumanization. And we spoke earlier about why they didn't take us to court, but I have an analogy for why that didn't happen. We were in detention, and I think they changed the DG of the DSS. They brought a new guy. So that new guy, he came in and he changed all the directors in the states. So there was a new director that came in, and they were supposed to take us to court. But then when he came in, he came down to our cell and he was asking. He called my name. Are you so person? What did you do? Are you so person? What did you do? We want to know. Tell me. I want to know what you did. Let us know what we are going to do with you guys. To his credit, that was when things even move a little bit. But he saw our condition. We were totally out of shape. And then they were supposed to take us to court. But then, if they had taken us to court, that was it third or yes, that third, and someone maybe take our picture and post it online, that would be a total outrage. And that was when he said they should go and barb us, and we should go through medical checkups and all that. And that was when I saw his scale. When they were done with me, I saw a scale and I asked if I could jump on it. That was the first day I saw the sun in 58 days. That day they brought us out for the medical checkups. That's preparing us for the court. So I jumped on that scale, and I saw that I had already lost 27, 28 kg. Me that I am very tiny. I lost 28 kgs. And that was...
So you're saying you lost 28 kg in...
Yes, I lost 28 kg. Because
that is criminal. You should see my face, right? Like, that is criminal. And I think I'll have to maybe later, to also round up, because we didn't plan to keep you all this long, really, but we need to get all this information out there. And I'll get back to Wali to actually ask how to round up by also like just telling us how the state can be brought to because you can't, like, the state cannot try itself, or how is that supposed to be? Is this something that you can take to, where do you take this kind of case to say they have like done this to me, the state has trampled upon my human rights? Is there a way to go about it? Because I remember someone once saying that they were going to charge. Can you charge the DSS? Basically, is the question. I'll please ponder upon that. And Mr. Engineer Khalid, I'm literally stammering right now because, yeah, we read about this, but just listening to you again is just a different type of. It's just, I mean, we can only imagine what you've gone through. But yeah, please tell us before we come to hear about the way to go about this, or to what you all think. Please go on.
Okay, so I lost 27, 28 kg, and they barbed us. He asked them to bring what they were feeding us. They brought it to him, and then he said he should take us back. And in his own mind, he was trying to make sure that we regain some kind of whatever. We regain ourselves before they could parade us out there to the public. So that was why they didn't take us to court that morning that they were supposed to take us to court on the 3rd. So, and they took us back to our cells that day. I was the strongest among all of those that were in detention, because at some stage those I was arrested with were all released. It was different people from different places that we were left there. So, and they just decided, since we are sitting in this place, there should be a kind of leadership, so that at least we would be guided. And they nominated me unanimously to lead them, because I was the strongest, even though I was feeling what I was feeling. But even me, I was broken that day. That they didn't take us to that court. I came back. I couldn't cry because all my tears have dried up. But you see these guys, they cried from morning till night. Because you had no information, you had no access to anything. Like, you don't know what is going on. It's just like you are in the underworld. Like, you don't even know if your family or someone knows you are in this place. You don't have access to anything. Like I said, it was that day I saw sun after 58 days. So you can imagine, even sunlight, all of us were rushing to have the reflection of the sun, because it was new to us. So after that, then I think it was on a Thursday. Then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, then Monday again, I was provoked to the neck, if you understand what that means. So I addressed one of those handlers, because in that detention you would hear someone say, please, if you are going to kill me, just kill me. Bring out your gun and kill me. Let me know that I'm dead, because of the level of torture. So I addressed the guy, and I was chairman. He said, no, listen to me, because everyone was the guy was scary. Everyone is scared of him. And I stood up, and I was talking to him. I was like, why are you guys doing this? You wake up in the morning, you just hear someone shouting, hitting the door. And when one of the handlers come around, he would say, please, bring out your gun and shoot me. Let me know I'm dead. We were in detention. One of us, his wife gave birth, and it was CS. That boy was a DJ. One of the DJs. It was a CS, and that boy was in detention for doing nothing. And that wife and that kid were left uncared for. and he was there. And these people could not even allow him to go out and be with his family, with his newborn baby. He was there. That boy was brought out of the womb of his wife. It was until his release that he get to meet his child. He knew her OD, what is it called? It's when she was supposed to give birth, his rent, and like this was a young man that got married no more than a year. And normally when you get married, about that time that your wife is supposed to give birth, that would be around the time you would renew your rent if you are staying in the rented apartment. So those two came at the same time, which he was needed at that time. But then these guys just kept this boy in that detention. The wife gave birth. The landlord was on the wife had to leave that house. She had to leave because the rent had expired. But the husband is not there to care for them. And that was how the landlord make that poor girl leave that house. I mean, so many cases like this. In my own case, I had a lot of business meetings. I had a lot of businesses going on. My kid was out there, my family, my wife. I mean, it was really painful. So I approached the guy and I was like, Chairman, if you cannot feed us, because that's the only thing we need right now. You cannot feed us. Okay, me, I have money in the counter. Please take my money, buy food for me. If you don't want to use my money, please allow me to call my wife or call my parents so that they will be bringing food. That guy would say, no, this is what you would eat. But this is not.
Yeah, I mean,
I would say, but this is not enough for me. If you look at me, you would know that I'm malnourished. But he said this is coming from above, and there is nothing he could do about it. And that was how we continue living in that inhumane condition. And the cells were very dirty, bed bugs and everything. All of us had rashes, apart from those initial rashes we got from the grass, bed bugs. I mean, the place was terrible. The condition was terrible. And they would give you complain you are having ulcer symptoms or you have ulcer. And what they would do is they would give you medicine which would be worth 10,000 naira. But then to give you food of 500 naira or 1,000 naira, they will not do it. And it's not as if there is no provision for that.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's really clear. It's very clear what like you said, the intention is intentional, and I think it's important for everybody to understand that everything that happens in Nigeria is not by accident. It's planned, orchestrated dehumanization of the people that live on that geographical location.
Yeah.
At this point, I mean, you can only imagine the kids that have also been there, and they're asking them for 10 million as bail, which we're talking about, right? And yeah, so we don't keep you all too long here. I guess I'm stammering a lot more on this episode because I'm just like, what, but I think just based on my own ideology and my own direction and what we see, it's very clear what the state does. And that's why I would like for Engineer Khalid, I'll come back to you, and so you can finish up your conversation. But I would just take this 2 minutes or so to round up. And Wali, please, can you respond if there's any way you can make the state accountable or make the DSS accountable for this? Because it's not just all about being out. Now they've taken your life away. For example, people that have missed the birth of their children, the malnourishment, the dehumanization, all of these things that have happened to people. Some people will lose their jobs, people that have jobs. So is there any way that you can file for compensation if there's, even though, you can never compensate for these things?
Yes. Again, this is one of the institutional problem arguments that I've made earlier, because institutions like the National Human Rights Commission, the AG's office, even some of the departments within the police, or the National Security Advisor, or any of these people actually can, without even being prompted to do so, just give life to the Constitution. The Constitution is clear that where it is proven that the liberty of somebody has been illegally taken and their rights have been abused, then they are owed apology and compensation. So the law is active. The law is not always passive. So naturally, they should be the one set up a committee of some sort. If they had conscience, if we were in a serious country, if our leaders or the people manning these offices really understood what the spirit of the law is and why we need these clauses, so they can set up a committee and invite literally everybody to come and lay their complaints, and they will devise an adequate compensation and apologize for you. But all the same, the law allows you to pursue for it. Obviously, the Constitution allows you to do so, and obviously the instrument of the Fundamental Rights Enforcement Procedure Rules, which allows you to file a fundamental human rights action in court, where you can go and pray for reliefs like apology, compensation, and every other relief, and also some declarations that your actions were legal, and obviously that has some value in the sense that you get the court to re-emphasize that protest is legal. But the reality is we have a litany of authorities that has condemned all these types of actions. So frankly, court judgments these days don't just have that effect on the police, the DSS. They really don't respect the court judgments, because the court has been bashing them for as long as possible. Now the reality is we can file a suit, we'll get the court to direct them to apologize and pay compensation, but they will end up appealing it. That's what they will do. They will appeal it to go to the Court of Appeal, to the Supreme Court. If you are lucky and you get a judgment at that stage, to even enforce it, to get them to actually publish the apology and to get them to pay you the compensation, you have to go through the office of the AG. The AG who ought to do it ab initio. So the law is that the Sheriffs and Civil Processes Act, that for you to garnish the account of a government institution, so for you to garnish the police account or the DSS account so that you can get your compensation, you need the consent of the Attorney General. And they don't give this consent. And I don't remember when last they gave anybody this consent whatsoever. And it ought to be active. They ought to have an office where, okay, if you need a consent, you apply, you send a copy of the judgment, they verify, and they give you consent, and you garnish it. Because garnishing is simply you go to the bank where their money is held, you give the bank the court order, you garnish them, they come to court, they show cause that yes, they indeed have the money, and the court will get there, will tell them to transfer the money to you. It would have been an easy mechanism, but they said that for some reason you have to go through the AG, who ought to have done it ab initio himself, or who ought to have prevented it by being the chief legal officer. So it is an endless loop. You almost never win. That's just reality.
Yeah, and I think it just puts you on that. You just keep wasting time.
It might have symbolic value, to say that, okay, I have a judgment that clearly says that. And obviously, I encourage that a lot, that says that, yes, I didn't commit any offense and what they did was wrong. I think it gives people, that at least you have it on record, right? But the reality is, to get the compensation itself is another. This garnishee procedure, you also have to go back to court, and if the first court of instance give its ruling that okay, they should pay you the money, they can decide to appeal it again, and then you still go back to the Supreme Court. So you are in court for 6 years, 7 years, and you have not achieved anything. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, I hear you. And now I would like for us to end by saying a couple of things regarding what you think the approach to protest should look like, because in a more conscious society, let me put it like that, if one person or something happens to one or two people or a couple of people, it would even lead to much more bigger protest, right? So, but in this case now, you see a lot of Nigerians that probably were telling people that, you should never have done this to begin with, people that do not really understand what they need to do to fight against the system, because at the end of the day, nobody's getting out of this, right? So is there a couple of things we would like to say in how people should organize if they want to maybe go protest? Because a couple of people have talked about, before you do anything, make sure you have your team of lawyers, or make sure you do this or make sure you do that. So let me just hear your rounding statement, and then I will take Khalid and we'll round up.
I mean, all those are good suggestions, I mean, I guess, but I think that people also forget the nature of the country that they exist in. Right, I can tell you to do all these things, but at the end of the day, 90% or 80 to 90% of those people, the people who actually protest because they have to, because they just don't have any other way, really don't have the education or civility or sophistication to do all these things you want them to do. That is just the reality. The only class that can, actually, put together a proper protest, the educated class, the professional class, are not willing to do it. Only a few of them are really
Exactly.
So those people advising to do this, to
Please
do that,
speak to them.
They should come on ground and do it. They seem to have the knowledge. They should come on ground and do it. But my own point is, we have to safeguard everybody's right to protest. That you are not doing it, how I want it to be done, does not mean you don't have the right to protest.
Thank you.
So
exactly.
We can't gatekeep it. We can't. The law is clear that it is the police and the government agencies, who should ensure that it is peaceful. Who should ensure that it is well coordinated. It is not the people. We can't gatekeep it. We can't just stay in our offices or our house and say, "Why didn't you do it like this? Why didn't you do?" They said they were hungry. They don't have time for your instructions. It's just the reality of it. Most of these kids that they've arrested, for example, they are uneducated. They are not in school. There's really nothing going on in their lives. Their existence itself is a protest against the establishment. So, people need to be a lot more realistic. Dishing out all they should focus on the problem, frankly. They should focus on solving the solutions that ensure people protest. Safeguarding protests or trying to regulate, it can't happen. Nobody protests out of, excitement or out of, just pleasure. People are forced to protest. So as long as they don't take care of the root problem, there's no regulation.
I mean, I completely agree. Definitely. I mean, that's how I see it. There's no way you behave that the state would not unleash on you. And it's like, okay, people just speak. Really, people just talk. And sometimes they try to act oblivious. I guess that's a coping mechanism. But yeah, Khalid, please what would be, should I say advice? But I don't know. Just, what do you want? What do you, I just find it hard to say, okay, now advise people, or how do you think that people should go about it? Because like we just said right now, there's really no way you do it peacefully. There's a problem. They say you do something, they talk about it. Right now, they just want you to keep quiet. But please just let me hear a couple of more words from you, and then, we'll try to close up and on this.
Okay.
That's not a question, I guess, but just,
All right. So that was issue with that poor young Nigerian, which was within his right to protesting. And if you look at the entire thing, you would understand the system had been designed to undermine and making sure that these voices are not heard. Why I said that is it was deliberate how that protest was hijacked, and that was done deliberately. If it's the government, if it's the pro-government people that come out and start breaking all these laws and making sure that people are sent back home so that they will not be able to protest. And there is only one way to it, and that would have to come to the organizational level of the whole thing. Because I remember that I was preaching, if we want this thing to go manually in order, we should organize ourselves much and much better. By organization, that would mean first and foremost, you need people to come together, and secondly, after coming together, the first line of action would be getting a team of lawyers that would be spread across the country, so that in case, because you might not be planning, but then things just happen and you will not know when or how, but you just end up there. So lawyers should be the first line of organization. And secondly, we should have our own security setup. Even if it's not personnel, we can cover what it is we are doing. I suggested that we could use in this era of modern journalism, you can use your phone, you can use drones to cover the area you are protesting in, so that it would be very, very obvious that Mr. A is protesting peacefully, he wants his voice to be heard, but then Mr. B is working for someone that doesn't want that protest to happen. So if he sends Mr. B to come and start vandalizing shops and maybe start breaking laws and causing mayhem and all that, then the government would have an excuse to declare maybe 24 hours curfew and send everyone back home. So, and that would mean the end to that protest, and then they would pick that Mr. B's offense and try to put it on Mr. A, who was actually protesting, peacefully protesting. So I think it comes down to the organizational level of it. People that have the will and want Nigeria to be better, they should bring themselves together and try to ensure these parameters are set. And I think I know it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy, but we cannot be silent and we cannot just sit there and continue to be rungs on a ladder to the top for the leaders, because these leaders they are slaves to those positions, and they can do anything to ensure they remain in the helm of affairs. So
Yes.
yeah, this is no joke. So
At all.
yeah, it's no joke. I think that's what I would add to what I had already said.
Yeah, and I think it's very, very profound. Organization, there's no way you can escape that. We need to be organized. Like, everybody want to just come and speak, but at the end of the day, I guess that's just the only way, and there's no way to really take back this power if not to resist. So yeah, thank you very much. Organize. I think that's what we always say as much as we can. So we can always, like you said, you can use different tactics. It's a lot that we can learn from, pull from history and every other place. So yeah, and I appreciate you guys for joining us today. Thank you for all you shared. Thanks for your sacrifice. I hear you all, and yes.
Sorry.
Yes.
To budget again. I mentioned just one. I forgot one important thing, and I want to, if it's okay, let me add it.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So what I wanted to say was calling on our young Nigerians on. I think we live on trends. That's what happens essentially among youths, and this is why we are not succeeding in whatever it is we are trying to do. Because yesterday there was a story of these kids that were taken to court, and maybe tomorrow it would be T-Pain. The next day it would be Buhari, and we jumped from trend to trend, We moved on too quickly. And solidarity means not moving on. Even those of us that we lost, it would be an insult to their persons, to their families, to their memories, that we just moved on. The NSAS, some of them are still in detention. The end bad governance, a lot of people are still in detention. But most of us have moved on from these things, which is not proper, which is not solidarity. And I think it's very, very important that we don't move on from these things. Yeah, life has to continue, but then it's also important that these people know that their sacrifices are not in vain, because if anything should come out of this whole thing, it's not just for them, it's not just for their families, it's also for us, it's also for you. So moving on would not speak well of us. So it is very, very important that we don't move on from these things, even in as much as life has to continue. But then, you that you are outside, if you have the confidence, you know that maybe today, if something happens to me, I know my brother has my back. He got my back. So moving on is a problem which we need to understand that it's very, very important to keep that solidarity within us. So that's it.
Yeah, I think that's an important message, right? Yeah, I wanted to round up on, just how at the end of the day, if you don't speak out, one day it's going to be you. But for some reasons, people think that they have more blessing than other people. But I guess. So thank you for joining us on this episode, and we'll see you next time. And yes, so join us next time.